One of the things that you've had to do was the founder CEO transition.
Yep.
Right? Like, most of the companies you've been involved in, there was a founder CEO.
All three of the companies.
All three founder CEO.
Indeed.
They're super talented, very bright entrepreneurs.
Indeed.
The founders were always still at the company, highly engaged, highly motivated. They become friends. And what makes that work? Because, as an investor, that's one of the riskiest things we can do.
So I think there are two or three things. One, I think you have to invest an enormous amount of time. And as a CEO, the more that you can take the attitude of, I am a custodian of what you've built. I'm not taking over from you. It's a partnership. You have to believe in your head that it's a partnership, that the founder created this and you're grooming it, right? And so it's a joint. So I always treat, even now, anytime there's a big decision, even if it has nothing to do with Loris, the founder of Sysdig, his domain, I always call him to say, here's what I'm thinking, even if it's something as completely removed from his daily job, as we want to get into Asia, in Australia, we found this person, and we're going to make a big bet on a new VP where we didn't even have that plan. I'm just making up an example.
Right.
You still want the founder to feel like he's partnering with you in company decisions, not just technology or whatever the founder's domain happens to be. I think that's the first thing is you have to go in saying this is a partner, not someone that's owning a domain of the company. The second thing I think is if the exec team acts like a unit, then the founder sees that there's a group of people that are shepherding the company rather than just this relationship between the CEO and founder. I find that the most valuable time is in aligning the rest of the exec team.
But how do you build the chemistry with the founder? Because I've watched you now over the years, have build that trust, right? And you gave some good examples how you get everyone aligned. But is there things that you do that you would say, hey, look, for a founder going through a transition or a CEO coming into a new situation, here's things that help build that? Because at the end of the day, the trust is everything.
No, for sure. So most of the founders that I've dealt with come from a product background, right? That's their, and so I think it helps that I have a product background. And honestly, my goal is to know the technology and product as well as the person that's running product management or R&D every time, not at the level of sort of code, if you will, but at the level of every function in the product and why is it shaping. And so I think the first thing is investing that time. And then the second thing is I always create a kitchen cabinet around the different functions. So while we have an exec team, right at Sysdig, for example, my VP of engineering, my VP of product, and our founder, Loris, and I probably spend at least 12 to 15 hours a quarter where we are just in open loop brainstorming mode, right? And so when you invest that kind of time on a topic that the founder deeply cares about, then automatically there is no more, I can finish his sentences, he can finish my sentences when you're doing it quarter after quarter, month after month. So I think time is, you just have to invest time and you have to sort of almost be conversant in what they care about. I think that helps as well. And lastly, Ping, I really think it makes a huge difference when the founder believes that you are acting in the same interests as they are. So that's what I mean by you have to believe that the founder is a partner, right? Not that he's reporting to you. And so if you can completely eliminate this notion of who reports to whom and act almost as if they are your partner in building the company and every decision is a shared decision, then I think the guards go down completely.
Talk a little bit about your transition in 2011 to taking over as CEO. It's not an easy thing to do, to take over for founders. And in effect, you became a quasi-founder of the business. Even though you weren't there since the very beginning, you sort of put the company on its trajectory to sort of the business that it is today. And it's a very tricky thing to do. But maybe talk about that transition and how that relationship has been over the last 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, it's definitely very tricky, especially in a case like mine where Dave and Sarah were friends, right? Because you have to navigate that line of, I need control if I'm going to really take over, but you don't want to upset either the founders or your friend. And so there was a lot of there were times when it was tough. There just were, but for the most part, that worked really well. So the five of us quickly got together. When Dave and Rustam came to me, they said they were looking for a CEO. That was clear. And, I understood it's not going to be me saying what to do. It's going to be the 5 of us. And I think that worked really well, because the last thing you want to do is sit there and say, hey, I'm going to go and import a bunch of my stuff into this company when you don't really understand the company and how it's working. So the 5 of us worked together quite well for a long time. And we still work well together. We just don't work much together anymore. And that's the thing is over time, you know, a leader leads, and you start taking on more and more of the actual leadership. And some of that happens, you know, just in terms of all hands and things like that. And you've been a part of them. Sarah and I always have kind of done that role together and continue to do that role together today. It was such a good time doing it. But there's also who's making the decisions and who do people go to for the decision. And so at the beginning, when you're 20 people, you can do all 20, but as you grow, there has to be more structure and hierarchy. And that's where building that structure and hierarchy that rolls up to myself is important. Now, as a founder role, whether it's Dave, Sarah, Rustam, you know, Natalia, they're going to come in and they're going to, you know, want to be able to have the influence where they think something is being done wrong. And depending on their roles, you know, whether their roles are formal, like Sarah, who leads customer support, or informal, which is, you know, Dave and Rustam as founders, and that they're going to come in and they're going to say, I don't like this. They have to start to recognize that can work when everybody knows you, because they understand, you know, not only are you there because it's your baby, you know, you invented this and you grew it, but also because you're there for good. Now, it doesn't always come across that way. It often comes across, especially if it's less and less frequently, of, oh my goodness, a founder came in and yelled at us, right? And then chaos ensues. And that's where it starts to become difficult. And that's as the company really starts to grow and they, you know, it's more of a heartbeat of they're out, now they're in, they're out, now they're in. And that's where you need to start having the discussions, which are, you know, hey, if you're going to do that, here is the path from which you can do that.